Crazy Crab in the house, and today it's Crazy Crab's worst 10 Star Wars moments, the most cringeworthy, the most horrific, the most mortifying moments in the history of this awesome saga. It's Star Wars, the worst 10 moments. Now, you may be thinking this has to do with Jar Jar Binks. Actually, Jar Jar came up with the title for this dishonorable mention. But the award actually goes to Padme. And Padme, I really like Padme. And I love the choice of Natalie Portman, who, not unlike Carrie Fisher, she's stunning, right? She's just a perfect choice for the role. Not only a great actress, just has a beautiful face and also a tough side to her that comes out. I mean, she's just really good. I thought it was a good choice as far as the actress goes. She was, young, but she was, when she was the queen, she was kind of dull, but I liked her. Yet in Attack of the Clones, and this is where this one comes from, in Attack of the Clones, we get two scenes where she is just rude. And the thing is, I don't even think it was intentional. I think in the first instance, the editing was done so poorly that she comes across as completely blowing off Yoda, the #1 Jedi, the most, he deserves the utmost respect. Take a look at this.
Your tragedy on the landing platform, terrible. Seeing you alive brings warm feelings to my heart.
Do you have any idea who's behind this attack?
Our intelligence points to disgruntled spice miners on the moons of Naboo.
Okay, does this seem okay to you? So, Yoda gives this sweet and caring speech. She completely disregards it without so much as a thankful smile, starts talking about who was behind this attack on her. Okay, maybe she had her mind on the attack, obviously. She was all business, no time for pleasantries. Fine. Even if we gave a pass on this scene, it happens again. Check this scene out.
We must consider your own safety.
What is your suggestion, Master Jedi?
Oh, Anakin's not a Jedi yet. He's still a Padawan learner. But I was thinking...
Hold on a minute.
Excuse me. I was thinking I would stay in the Lake Country. There's some places up there that are very isolated.
Excuse me.
I'm sorry, that was very, very, very rude. Even if it's true that Anakin was not yet a Jedi Master, you don't embarrass someone like that in front of other people, and the way she did it was so bad. She cuts Anakin off, who was asked an important question, lets them know that he's just a sucky little Padawan, then proceeds to start talking, even though he was asked a question, because she's so much more important. And how freaking rude was that? I'm sorry. That was just really bad. And, Anakin gets upset, which is understandable, actually. And I think George Lucas was trying to show that Anakin had this anger in him and that supposedly he was already, on the path that would eventually lead him to the dark side. In reality, since Lucas, as we saw, has no idea how people actually talk.
I doubt if the actual security there is any greater than it was on Aquilai or Solus, and what there is most likely directed towards a large-scale assault. And I thought, who talks like this, George? I mean, this is really not fair because, we're the ones that are going to get vegetables thrown at us, not you.
It came across as Padme being a total you-know-what. And I hated it because I like Padme, and I don't think that this was the intention in either scene. So I imagine when Natalie Portman first watched the Yoda scene, she's probably like, oh, wow, that was I didn't know I was so rude. But they definitely didn't film it that way originally. In fact, maybe she was just reading her lines, and later, they had Yoda read the lines, and I don't know, in the editing room, this is what came out. This is what we get. And I'm sorry, it really stuck out to me. And maybe non-Star Wars fans may not get this, but most of us really hate when things from popular culture here on Earth make it into Star Wars movies, like a Tarzan yell, which we hear in both episodes 3 and 6. The reason that the Tarzan yell didn't make it as a dishonorable mention is because thank you for the Phantom Menace for bringing us E.T. This is E.T. This is the extraterrestrial. These are his people. It's a reminder to everyone that this is just a movie. It's not a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, and this is stupid and unnecessary. And apparently, from my research, George Lucas had promised Steven Spielberg that since Spielberg put Yoda in his movie, E.T., George would put E.T. in one of his movies. Here's the problem. In E.T., it actually works. It's not really Yoda. It's not an alien. It's some kid dressed up as Yoda for Halloween on Earth. It's not out of place. It fits, and it's funny. But in Star Wars, this is really E.T. This is aliens in the Star Wars universe. And I'm sure they have their own name and everything, like Star Wars fans, like in the lore, they'll say, oh, no, actually, that's the such and such aliens. No, let's be real. It's E.T. That was put in there to be E.T. Okay? Call them what you want. They're the E.T. race, and it's stupid. So let's move on to the top 10. This is a scene I didn't talk much about in my review because there's not much to say. It's an embarrassing moment when Leia appears to be flying through space. The ship she was in is completely obliterated, yet she's completely intact, for which there's no in-saga explanation for. You got to go searching YouTube videos and find out about force bubbles. Are you kidding me? And anyway, she puts her hand out and floats to the door of the rebel ship. They open the door. Of course, no problems. They're in space. They can just open the door. Nothing happens. But, okay, I can let that go. We're used to that. Not all the rules of space in our universe apply in the Star Wars universe. No problem. But the whole scene is just a joke. And like many of the scenes in the prequels, will get made fun of forever. This was not in the prequels, but I'm just saying it's like many of those scenes in the prequels. I mean, is that what you want with a scene as a filmmaker? You want to create a scene that gets made fun of forever and is hated by millions of fans? Or do they just not care? Let's just move on to number 9. Speaking of scenes that get made fun of forever, you know what? It's not so much just the sand comments, as bad as those are. Those comments on sand just kind of represent the whole stupidity of that entire relationship. It's just like the pinnacle, you know, the sand moment. It's just like the moment when they actually kiss for the first time, even though everything we have seen or heard up to this point has shown a total drama queen, annoying, and kind of scary guy coming out to a more mature woman who has to be completely creeped out, we would think. The whole thing made no sense. It was completely wrong, very weird, and absolutely deserving to be on this list. The sand moment. And it never got any better, that relationship. It was handled completely differently than the Han and Leia relationship, which felt real. It felt right. Everything worked with that one in the originals. This whole thing, I mean, most people would agree, this just did not work. Although I will say the music, the love scene by John Williams, some of the best music ever written, but unfortunately it was not used properly because of the scenes that it was used for were horrible. Okay, The Force Awakens was a refreshing return to the Star Wars universe without that annoying look and feel and vibe of the prequels. But they had this stupid idea to have R2-D2 be in like a coma, like low power state. We're talking about a droid here. This is a droid. And he was depressed that Luke wasn't around. You know, this is a really dumb idea, but whatever. Maybe you just wanted R2 to appear for the fanboys, but you really wanted the spotlight to be on this new droid that came from a Pixar film, BB-8. Fine. But then when the plot needs R2 to wake up because he has a piece of the map that you need to find Luke with, he just wakes up. Luke is not there to bring him out of his depression. He wakes up because the plot needed him to. And if you say, well, he sensed it was time to wake up because they needed that map. What? R2's a Jedi now too? I sense great need nearby. It's time to wake up. He's a freaking droid. I really hate to pick on R2 and C-3PO because they were really lovable droids from the original prequel, and I love those guys, but they have not been treated very well since the original trilogy. Some say even since the original movie. In The Phantom Menace, George Lucas decided he needed to shove R2-D2 as far in our faces as he possibly could, as if we didn't know who this little blue droid is. Everyone in the world recognizes R2-D2. 90-year-old farmers in Vietnam recognize R2-D2. Do you? Okay, maybe not, but was it necessary to put R2-D2 as the droid on the main ship with all these important characters, have him save the day by fixing the shield, then have him front and center in a big embarrassing ceremony where Queen Amidala asks someone to read off his number and the guy says about as loudly and clearly as any line of dialogue in the entire saga, R2-D2, Your Highness, to which the Queen says, clean this droid up. It deserves our gratitude. Are you serious, George? Why not just make something like this? R2-D2! 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 He's here! This is R2! This is the droid from the old movies! This is the droid that you love! You have the little toys! This is the same one! It was so bad.
R2-D2, Your Highness. R2-D2, Your Highness. R2-D2, Your Highness.
Okay, when Attack of the Clones finally decided, let's not be completely boring and let's actually put some action here, they come up with this scene. And it takes place in a droid making factory with a conveyor belt with like Super Mario style stamps that like stomp down onto plates that Padme has to dodge. It's kind of, I guess it's kind of exciting. I mean, it's not all horrible. It has some potential, but meanwhile, R2-D2's flying around. Okay, that's a skill he apparently loses later in life. And the whole scene just has so many things I hate about it. And the worst part about it is C-3PO being used as some kind of comic relief, except it's not funny. He's flying and climbing and hanging around. He's hanging on a speeding cart. He's got amazing dexterity we never knew he had. His head ends up on a clone body. A clone's head ends up on his body. He makes stupid puns and jokes. Oh, what a drag while he's being dragged. Okay, it's unbearable. It was like a cartoon. Okay, it felt like a cartoon or something, like a spin-off Star Wars cartoon for kids. And to this day, it's still hard to think about, to talk about. The whole scene, it had some potential. There was some excitement there, but, you know, like most things in the prequels, it was just destroyed. It turned out to be one of my least favorite moments in the Star Wars saga. The moment here, I will never forget this moment, no matter how hard I try. Apparently, it still wasn't obvious enough who we're dealing with here, who we have here. These droids, who are they? I think we have figured it out by now. But just in case anyone has not figured out that these are the same old droids we knew in the original trilogy, they're shown meeting in one of the most elaborate introductions in the history of film. R2-D2, I am C-3PO, human cyborg relations. I'm sure George was like, can we make R2-D2 talk too? Can we make him say, I am R2-D2? And someone was like, no, George, he just beeps. And George's like, no, we got to make him talk. We got to make him like say, I'm R2-D2. We have to make sure everyone knows. The other guy's George. Everyone knows by now. This decision to shove all these original characters in our face, whether they belonged or not, is really, to me, the biggest distraction in the prequels. Worse than any of the poor dialogue, poor editing, poor character development, too much CGI. This decision to do this was what ruins these movies for me, more than anything else. I mean, they're barely watchable because of this, which it just creates plot holes, because we know these droids were not. We're gonna get to more of this. It's just not even close to over, so I'm not gonna get, because I'm about to freak out, and I have too many more of these worst moments left to freak out. So let's move on. This is an interesting one because Darth Vader belongs in this scene. So he's not shoving a character that doesn't belong in our face. Darth Vader belongs. It's not really a plot hole. It's not that Anakin wouldn't be very upset in finding out that Padme died. He would. But sometimes you have to make smart decisions when you're making a movie. And when you're directing a film of this magnitude and a character this popular makes his first appearance in over 20 years, especially given that his appearance is going to be very short. We're not getting much of him. There's only so much time to have him say or do anything to decide that the best course of action is to have Darth Vader yell, "No!" It's one of the worst decisions ever made by anyone ever. Period. This was the end of the prequels. This was the last chance to redeem these movies somewhat, in some way, and make something awesome, make an awesome transition into the originals. This was the moment everyone had waited for and sat through those 3 awful movies to see the man in the suit, Darth Vader, and to hear that unmistakable voice. And sure, I'm not, thrilled to hear Darth Vader ask about Padme, but given the course of the film, that's probably what he would have asked about. That's probably what Anakin, now in the Darth Vader suit, that's probably the first thing he may ask about. So when he's told that she died, and in his anger he killed her, he starts getting angry. It's like, oh, the Emperor's going to have to calm him down or something, or maybe he'll calm down himself after, he busts a few things, and he'll start talking like the Darth Vader we remember. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know. It's going to go a million different ways, right? We didn't know. So he gets mad. He busts out of the chains that he's in, and that's when it happens. No! Okay, and that's pretty much what every Star Wars fan was thinking too. The same thing that Darth Vader was thinking right there. And it's a scene that many Star Wars fans hate, including myself, because there's so many different ways it could have played out, all of which would have been fine. And this was literally the worst choice. I can't think of anything worse. Maybe like, Padme! Loved you, Padme! Okay. That would have been worse. I thought we were done with this. I thought George Lucas had gotten it out of his system, and there would be no more old characters who had no business in these films showing up and hanging out with characters that never knew them, only for the sake of apparently pleasing fanboys. I don't know which fanboys are pleased by this, but evidently there are some that George thought would be pleased by doing this. So now Chewbacca shows up. His planet shows up. All the Wookiees are fighting in a war. And Yoda, who says he has good relations with the Wookiees, shows up to assist. And of course, Chewbacca, front and center and best buddies with Yoda. Yoda's jumping on his back, hanging out. And of course, when everyone leaves, he makes sure to say goodbye and say Chewbacca's name nice and clear so everyone can hear. Goodbye, Chewbacca. Chewbacca. Goodbye. You know what? I could have maybe barely tolerated it if he wanted to show the Wookiee planet and maybe a little cameo of Chewie as one of the soldiers out there fighting, because it stands to reason at one point in time he lived there on that planet. Maybe this was that point in time and there's a war, so he's a soldier, and there's lots of Wookiees out there fighting, and maybe, but at least it kind of maybe makes sense. Maybe he was out there fighting, and there's Chewbacca. Okay, fanboys, yay. Fanboys are happy. But having him hang out with Yoda and get on Yoda's back and oh my gosh, how stupid I'm getting mad just thinking. Let me apologize. I got carried away. We're getting close to number 1, and it's getting harder and harder to talk about, frankly. Let's just move on to number 2. This is not much different than the previous example, more in-your-face stuff, but this time the characters are even bigger than Yoda and the Wookiee. As big as Yoda and the Wookiee are, we're talking about Anakin, the main guy. He's supposedly the main character throughout the entire first 6 episodes, even though really Luke kind of takes over, you know, in the originals. But according to George Lucas, it's the story of Anakin Skywalker. And C-3PO, who has no relationship whatsoever with Darth Vader in the original trilogy. And to think they ever had any kind of relationship would be stupid. There's no reason to think that. Why? Because they didn't. Plain and simple. So coming into this movie, I wondered how George Lucas would be able to find a place for the droids that made any kind of sense. I had an open mind, even though I didn't know. I already figured there's going to be a lot of fan service here. And I figured he'd find a way to at least make it kind of work. But no, he just shoved them right in there, 100%. Completely disregarded any kind of continuity problems, any kind of plot holes it might create. Who cares? And he has little Anakin Skywalker, a.k.a. Darth Vader, be the maker and creator of C-3PO. I know this is old news. This is old stuff. We've known this for a long time. But you know what's also old news? Like the Civil War is old news. And it's still horrific. Okay? It doesn't get better over time. Like, oh, actually, it wasn't that bad. No, it was horrible. I'm not saying it's as bad as the Civil War. But to make this happen just because you have a pen and a paper and you can write whatever you want, it's really bad. It's really horrible. We can just forget the fact that a 10-year-old kid built an advanced droid with 6 million forms of communication who understands moisture evaporators and binary load lifters in order to help his mom around the house. We know the deal here. The pattern is established. And as I've said before, this was one of the most painful moments in the entire saga. And it was the most painful for a while. Worse than R2's big celebration, worse than the two droids meeting, worse than Chewie and Yoda, because we're talking about a young Anakin Skywalker and the story of how he grew up to eventually become Darth Vader. And it was just so awesome. Like, we're going to get to see a young Anakin. Anakin as a kid. A lot of people didn't think it was a good idea, but I was like, cool. Let's see Anakin as a little kid. Let's see Darth Vader when he was a little boy. How interesting. But we find out that not only is he Luke's father, he's also C-3PO's father. Human-cyborg relations. In the words of Count Dooku, they've gone too far. This is madness. And a word of congratulations to I almost said J.J. Abrams. Funny thing is, before The Last Jedi, I was not an J.J. Abrams fan. Now I love the guy. compared to Rian Johnson, like J.J. Abrams is like awesome. I mean, maybe that's pending until episode 9, but for now, I like J.J. Abrams. It's crazy. I never thought I'd say that. But anyway, congratulations to Rian Johnson and the whole Last Jedi crew for making #1 on Crazy Crab's list of the worst Star Wars moments, 10 worst Star Wars moments. And this moment, I had a hard time talking about it in my review of The Last Jedi. And it involves Finn. And okay, when Finn is about to sacrifice himself, it was no surprise to me that he got stopped. I saw that coming 3 miles away. I already knew this guy's style. I never sat there like, oh, it looks like Finn's going to die. Oh, wow. No, I was like, let's see. If Finn would have died, I would have fallen over my chair. So Rose T-bones the guy, and this is really stupid. They should have let him finish what he was doing or not had this scene at all. But that's not where it gets really bad. After they crash, first of all, let me just say I have no clue how they get back to the base without getting blown up by all those walkers right in front of them. No explanation is given because there probably is no explanation. And we're too stupid to ask those kind of questions according to the director, so no problem there. Okay, so Finn says, why did you do that? What are you doing? And she goes on to deliver some of the most painful and cringe-worthy words ever said in any Star Wars movie. And I don't have it memorized. I've only seen the movie once still. I'm still scared to go back. She says something like, we save the ones we love. And then they kissed. Now, is it okay for people to kiss in Star Wars? Yes. Was this the right time and the right people to be doing that? No. Maybe Finn and Rose's relationship could have continued into episode 9 and maybe something like this could have happened. But in the middle of the final battle, when everything's intense, we got everything on the line here. We got Luke Skywalker coming here. This is the time for that? Right in the middle of the walk, right there by the walkers. We don't know how they're going to get back. We saved the ones we love. This is horrible. This is awful. I nearly threw up in the popcorn of the person sitting next to me. I almost did. I think it's appropriate that this list started with Leia flying like Superman and ended with this. Because when I saw the Leia scene, that was kind of my first clue. I thought to myself, could this movie suck? And then this scene was final confirmation. Yes, it can. Yes, it can. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you next time.
R2-D2, Your Highness.